Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for the wrap up of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 4. This is one of the very few animes that I've watched the sub version on only because I have no choice. They never made the English dub version on, certain seasons, usually the final ones on certain animes that I like. This and Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds being the other. But this one's actually shorter compared to uh, the other three seasons. There's like 24 episodes in this season compared to like 52 in the other. It's like, ridiculous. It didn't seem like it, as a kid, it didn't seem like uh, uh, the previous, well, the first season, and definitely didn't feel like it was that long. Uh, but yeah, uh, I want like in my season 3 review, which you can check that out on the channel, youtube.com/talkative Carl, if you want to hear my overall thoughts on that singular season. But like as I said before, in that one, it was the most heavy, and I like to compare GX to like hey Nick, I like to compare like Yu-Gi-Oh! GX to like Harry Potter in the way like you know the overall growth of these characters from like wide-eyed kind of kids to mature young adults, and obviously it begins with like everyone. It's like the kind of sort of dealing with the fallout from like what happened in the other dimension, people trying to get back to normalcy. And it's the final year for a lot of these characters, aside from Hasselberry and Blair, who, Blair, previous year, in season 3, that was Blair's official first year, and that was Hasselberry's second year. This will be Hasselberry's third year and Blair's second year currently. And uh, it's a lot of personal things. It's like it's lingering in the air, like over a lot of people's heads. It's like, what will we've been through so much? What will we do after all this? It's not that different from like high school, if you think about it. Uh, it's like when the first time I watched this season was during the lockdown period of the pandemic in 2020, and it was at home, and it's like I thought to myself, you know what? I want to officially see how this ends. I mean, I technically know what is the last couple of episodes, which is like a good button to the. It's probably my favorite, nearly the top favorite ending of a show that I really love and thought was like a great bow wrap of the entire series. But prior to that, it's like I never actually like seen. I think I've seen clips, but I've never seen the entire thing and like the ultimate bad guy in this. So this will be my second time going over it, and so yeah, like I said, it's kind of like high school. It's like we've all been in high school, and can you imagine if like what you know now, you know, if you're somehow transported back to freshman year of high school with the knowledge you know as an adult, it's like you'll probably more than likely dominate high school. Uh, but I don't miss homework. I tell you right now, I do not miss homework. That was a pain about it. Like when I go home, I don't want to deal with like solving math problems or like trying to do like a book report and not saying that it's not useful or like but it's just like as an adult, I mean, like, as an adult, you all know it's, kind of dumb. It's like, God, it's like, so much out your way. And it's like, you know, I think it's more so with America than any other country in the world where it feels like they're trying to cram knowledge in you rather than making sure like it's like feeding you stuff just to see if you can memorize it so you can pass the test and move the hell out. And doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, like you grasp most concepts that you're getting. It's not like you don't know how to solve math problems or anything like that, but it's just like, you know, you know what I mean. It's like you like it's gonna be a theme here, like going through the motions in a way, not like realistically, but it's just like America doesn't strive that hard. I mean, like compared to like Japan or the UK, it's like they make sure that you're studying for stuff that you will no doubt will be useful to you as you leave high school. And I'm not saying like every other country is like perfect, but it's like America seems like kind of ass backwards insofar as like studying, teaching their students. Uh, but anyway, like I said, the season begins with everybody's trying to like get back to normalcy, some sense of normalcy after the ordeal they went through, especially of the last year. Traveling different dimensions and dealing with all these kind of like world-ending threats, on the school. And we are introduced to this character named Fujiwara, who probably from the manga, or if you've seen this last season, that he is, of course, he's being controlled by the ultimate bad guy, the Darkness, and he used to, well, I won't say used to, and he technically still is, but he's one of those few kids that, if you remember in the first season, missing kids, and he was the cause of that. He's manipulating people memories so he can well, it was kind of confusing because he's trying to uh you know convince people to burn a lot of people's cars that somehow is not activating, that holds some kind of darkness in them. But then later on in the season, he's like utilizing those to ensnare people into the darkness. So that was a little confusing to me. But you also get this other henchman like character that can just multiply apparently, who's in the extension of the darkness, called the Truth Man, or Mr. T. And he's doing all these well, primarily Jaden, but he's trying to duel kids and feed off their darkness. And once they lose, because their darkness or just like their insecurities or anxieties, which is kind of hits home. And with a lot of people, like if this guy or the darkness in general senses any kind of darkness in you or anxiety or insecurity, he heightens that and cause you to doubt yourself and like grab holes on you, and you're just you are trapped in the darkness. Uh, uh, Jaden, eventually after in end of episode 1 leading into episode 2, Jaden shoots back to Earth from like the other dimension, like a meteorite. And the first thing he asks is like, is it like not grilled cheese day, but something day in the cafeteria? Was everybody's decided to have Jaden back, and of course, Bastion stays behind with Tanya, and as I mentioned in the previous review, uh, Adrian Gecko is gone, never would return. I guess like whatever with his family, because I'm pretty sure they gonna be wondering like, okay, what happened to my kid? Uh, like he went off to uh the school that's supposed to be going to this other school, and he's never to be seen again. That it's like realistically, somebody would be like sending authorities to run an investigation on where the hell are these kids at? Where is my son? And especially coming from a rich family, they'll be tearing this place upside down looking for that kid. But I guess not. Of course, like Zane and Jaden's the only two that were previously suspected to be missing, but they returned. So it's like 2 out of the 4 people made it back. But Jaden, you can clearly see like Jaden, there's something wrong with him. Not like anything evil, it's just something more mentally. Because as I'm going through like the first half of the season, it's clear to me that Jaden, if you know anybody like who was like from the military, or like if you are from the military, because I heard this kind of stories before, is that when you experience like war and death and all the strife for a period of time, and you come back home, you are kind of missing a piece of yourself. If that makes any kind of sense. Like, I'm not from the military, but this is something like that's in general those kind of stories you kind of hear from people who were there. It's like you don't come back the same way as you left. And this is what I see from Jaden. It's like, and it kind of puts me in giving me like an idea of like little videos I want to do, like the psychology of like Yu-Gi-Oh, because as I mentioned about like many times in my previous Yu-Gi-Oh videos about like Merrick and his child abuse and like tons of DID from a lot of these characters, and you got like Yubel dealing with like isolation and what that do to a person mentally. Like I kind of want to do like short little, not like like a psychologist or anything like that, but I can easily look them up and compare them seeing what they got compared to what like look at Google it and see like what kind of stuff they got, and like put little short stories that what these people experience and what they will probably need to do to fix that, because or at least not fix it, but like work on themselves to overcome that, because what they deal with is not too dissimilar to what real life people experience: loneliness, probably child abuse, DID, anger, that kind of thing. I kind of want to do a video like that, and that seems like kind of like a fun idea. But yeah, Jaden is experiences like because of his experiences, that's like since like Kagamaru uh uh as has always been brought up at least a few times here, ever since Kagamaru and the Light of Destruction and like Yubel and like all those and the Supreme King and all those fiends up to this point, all that and all and like the hurt and the psychological and physical pain that not only Jaden had to deal with, especially in the previous season, but his friends, all that. Clearly he's physically okay, but mentally or maybe emotionally he's it's not, nothing's in sync anymore. As he's dueling, it seems like he's just dueling, going through the motions of it. And it's like, he'll duel. It's like, it's not, but if you recall from like the first 2 seasons, he's always up for a duel. It's like, he's like gung ho about it. But now it's like, he just like sits in his room by himself. I mean, of course, he goes to class every once in a while, but he's not seeking out duels. You know, you usually he's like getting ready for like egg witch day kind of thing, or he's sitting next to Pharaoh the cat fishing is by himself. He's pretty much not cut himself off from people, but it seems like he's just like, okay, I'm just here. And eventually, he wanted to like turn in like some papers to Chancellor Shepard, saying like, yeah, I'm I just wanna leave. Just like he just doesn't have the thrill of dueling anymore like that. And Chancellor Shepard is confused. Like, you only got like a few months before you graduate. Like, why you just want to up and leave? He just, you can see, like, he is just like, it's not like he's against dueling anymore. He just like doesn't have uh, that fire in his belly anymore, to borrow from Fairy Tale. But then you're dealing with the return of Fujiwara, who was friends with Atticus and Zane, who previously, was the three top duelists of the entire academy. And now you're dealing with like Mr. T and him trying to little by little, take out like just these duelists and absorb them into the darkness. And he's dueled Jaden a few times and like getting his butt beat. But beyond that, like I said, Jaden just like, unless it's like that serious and he's trying to do for fun, like there's like a little mini tournament that House of Berries set up to where like upperclassmen can go against lower classmen. And Blair is still like boy crazy over Jaden, but she and Hasselberry team up while Alexis and Jaden is teaming up. And Alexis is obviously in this is probably like since the first season, this is probably the longest time I've ever seen like in a while I see Alexis actually doing some dueling. But Alexis is tag team partner with Jaden, and she's like, oh, she's thrilled, like, oh, like, I'm dueling against Jaden. Me and him is gonna like, just take these guys down. Like, we're completely in sync. But like I said, Jaden is like, going through the motions. He's not considering. He's so like disassociated, to the present. Right now is just like he just doing like he's doing by himself. He's not considering his partner. And he's like, she's expecting him to like look at her, face down card so he'll know how to, bounce off that. But he's not considering it. He's like, I play this, boom, done, one shot. It's like, he's handling this quickly. He doesn't want to drag it out he doesn't consider it fun anymore. You can tell it's like he's rarely jokey about it. He's it's like that spunk is just like, man, that is just like minimalized to dang near none. But of course, Alexis, getting, unlike in the previous couple of seasons, he's where she's kind of like bitchy for, I don't want to say no good reason, but it's just uncharacteristically bitchy, when it comes to Alexis. But she's rightfully so upset with Jaden, whereas he completely ignoring her, like he's doing like she's not even there, and it's supposed to be a tag team duel. But thanks to her opening his eyes, he understood that, but it still takes him a while to understand. Like, it's more, he gotta get that spark back. But thanks to her, he understands there's people that are still here that you know, at least it isn't her that's gonna awaken that fire in him, but she cracks open the door. At least, in my opinion, she at least cracks open the door, saying, showing him, like, I, you know, there's people here who care about you, and like we've been through a lot, and you shouldn't push us aside. Like, stay present with us. Uh, but then of course, then like you got Axel, who is calling Jaden, let him know that there's like a situation, because now like Mr. T is in Domino City, and he's like, the darkness is starting to affect citizens little by little, because now it's pretty much like Thanos in a way, where people are just disappearing, especially I guess after duels, I guess, but it's not everybody dueling, but I guess just being corrupted by their own internal insecurities and anxieties, so the darkness just swept them up anyway, I guess. But Jaden later on gets called by Axel to come to Domino City, so Jaden takes a boat and speeds off to Domino City, to where he is supposed to meet up with Axel, but Axel already got swept up by the darkness, who utilized Axel's fears and insecurities about like what happened to him and his parents in the past, to where, because he's a survivalist, and like his father taught him everything he knows when he was a kid, being taught in the mountains by his father. Mother picks them up, they supposed to drive off home. They get into an accident, the car is burning. Axel's already been flung from the thing, but he was left with a difficult decision of choosing who to save. He thinks like he can at least save one of his parents, and like he loved both of his parents, but he had left with like, okay, I still got a lot to learn from my father, so I'm going to have to save him. But luckily, his father woke up. He got both, him and his wife out, so he didn't have to go to make that decision. But it just, he always regretted that he was going to throw his own mother away, for the sake of the knowledge that his father can give to him more so than what his mother could, and that ate him up inside, and that's what was fed off of him, and he got swept up into the darkness. So now Jaden's coming into Domino City. Everybody's gone. Like I said, this is like very Infinity War Thanos snap, and he got picked up by Sartorius, who saved him from the Mr. T clones. And I kind of want like a abridged version of this, because since it's Mr. T, they gotta have like somebody do like a, like, I pity the fool, as he's cloning himself. I'm pity the fool, I pity the fool, because he always does this like repetitious repeating of words like darkness, darkness, darkness. You can just have somebody abridge like, I pity the fool, I pity the fool. Sartorius picks up Jaden and brings him to Kyber Corp, but it's all empty, and like thinking that Sartorius is going to bring him to this helipad to take him back to Duel Academy, because that's where like everything's gonna that's the focal point of this big bad is going to be. But there's no helicopter. Sartorius kind of got enticed by the darkness, or at least not enticed, but is being used as a pawn by the darkness, who took his sister. And considering there was only, since there was Romani orphan children that was like on the street, there was only they only had each other. He is just like, I'm willing to do anything for my sister, so I'm going to duel you. Get taking the darkest and like get my sister. And Jaden's not allowed to leave because he had the building, at least a few parts of the top part of the building rigged to blow if either one of them leaves the arena. So this is a nice little. There's little callback duels that I appreciate. That kind of like come full circle. Like there's a callback duel with earlier with, because uh, Crowler, who is like it's one of the more like lighthearted episodes where Crowler is bummed out because these same kids that in the first season he was ready to like completely do everything he can to like get them expelled or removed because he only want the best of the best here kind of thing. But as over time, he going more so attached, so attached to these kids because all the stuff they've been through. Now it's like it's kind of like any teacher, like you've been in like middle school or high school. It's like you've been through a lot, especially high school. You've been through 4 years together with these kids, so it's hard to ignore the fact that you formed some kind of bond with them. So the fact that they're leaving, it kind of like it chokes you up because you're not going to see these people again because they're going off on different life paths, wherever that may be. So he's so swept up into like, okay, I want to keep them here. I'm not ready to let them go yet. So I'm, not failing them, but like not giving them like the points that they need or like the grades or like passing points or whatever that they need to move on, so they can get their graduation certificates and stuff like that. So Jaden and Crowler duel, which it's a little bit more advanced. So it's like you see brand new cards from Crowler, forming like the ultimate ancient gear golem monster that is even more difficult monster to beat than the ancient gear golem, who just have the ability to like, well, it has two abilities. You cannot activate traps once it's in the battle phase, and it has piercing battle damage even if your the opponent's monster's in defense mode. With Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, pretty much the same thing, but like a higher, attack points. Very devastating card. But with, Jaden, he doesn't have. If it was like just elemental hero cards that Jaden had in the very first year, he would definitely will lose against Crowley at this point. But with the heroes and like Neospatians together, Jaden, managed to like in the end make that final battle scene that we seen in their very first duel of the series, and compared to the first episode where everything comes crashing down on Crowler, and he's of course he's always been like a bumbling fool for like most of the doggone series. Like I said, I always wanted him to be like the Professor Snape of it all, and not like a Three Stooges kind of character. But now he's took the loss like a man, acknowledging the growth of Jaden, where he's not like he's not calling him a slifer slacker anymore. I don't think he called him that call any of them slackers throughout the entire season of the third season, and definitely have been calling these guys that in this season because they're not slackers anymore. These are true duelists, and they're not kids anymore either. And like he handles that with maturity, and it's like like I'm sad to see you go, but like I am incredibly proud of the man and women and duelists that you all have become. And it was like, the Crowler has gone through like, a fair bit of an arc where it's not like just antagonistic towards these kids anymore. It's just like he sees them, uh, in an entirely new light. And with Sartorius, it's a nice little callback to, the battle they had in the end of season 2. And even when like Sartorius, even though he's not controlled by the light of destruction anymore, he still got wild hair when he's like dueling for some reason. And he puts like Jaden in a bind for a while until Jaden, because he has card combo set out to where it negates any summon on Jaden's turn. So Jaden's not allowed to do any kind of summon thanks to this card combo Sartorius set up. But Jaden figured out a way to find a loophole where it's like, I can't summon anything on my turn, but I can still summon anything on your turn. So that's what he does, which allowed him to get past his combo and beat him, which is like a very sweet move. But Sartorius, like his sister, ends up getting swept up in the darkness, but Jaden promises he'll save them both. And like he runs into, thanks to this like little Mission Impossible like kind of wild move that he's hopping on, those little basket things people be on to use to clean windows off of tall buildings. He hops on those things as the building is starting to explode, and like he calls forth elemental hero Neos to like, carry him the rest of the way down to the ground. But he bumps into Jesse, but because earlier Sartorius infected one of his cards and slipped it in Jaden's deck, and that kind of seeped into a different card in Jaden's deck, which caused him to like hallucinate Jesse as Mr. T. But thanks to Jesse, because Axel thankfully earlier called Jesse to aim for some extra backup. Don't know why I never gotten Jim to come along either, but Jesse comes in, helps Jaden, and like, it gets rid of the infected polymerization that was corrupting Jaden's mind. But they head back to Duel Academy, where it's like, one by one, everybody's starting to disappear, whereas eventually only Atticus was left. And Atticus goes up against his best friend Fujiwa, who you learn that, since he was a kid, he lost his parents. And because of that loss, which he probably never got any help over, he assumes that, okay, everybody will eventually leave me someday, so I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that I throw them away like trash before that happens. I mean, that is like a typical, I'm not sure what the technical word for it, but there is like a thing, psychology wise, about like, throwing people away before they hurt you. So that's when he decides to acquire, like, he goes to that, it wasn't abandoned yet, but the infamous abandoned dorm on campus. He goes there and he does this kind of ritual to summon this darkness to acquire, like, power, I guess. And this is rare times where I've seen like blood, in Yu-Gi-Oh, because it's the sub stuff. I almost forgot about, like, you see Astra Phoenix again, and of course, like, Chaz Princeton is trying to figure out his path in life, and he wants to be on the pro circuit, but thanks to Crowler begging asked the Phoenix to take him on as an assistant, uh, just to get him like through the door, like at least like like get him through the steps, and you can see like the you know what Aster Phoenix does when he's not hanging out at Duel Academy, like his day to day work, and you know I imagine it's not that different from like people like those team sports leagues of like esports with video game kind of people that you know you see like on TV doing those esports video game tournaments where like Aster Phoenix got like sponsors and all this other stuff. He works exceptionally hard. This is not just card dueling kind of thing. He got like book signings. He does this like meet and greets. He does all these tournaments and duels, and like you see through Chaz's eyes like, oh my god, it's hectic stuff. He got like a bags full of cell phones that he was warned like, hey, by 7 a.m. you need to be on it or otherwise you're gonna regret it. And they never give him like a good play-by-play of like what he has to do so that way he be properly prepared. You just give him like, you'll be sorry, like you don't give him much information. So like he's tripping over himself like hey, okay, what okay, I hear you, okay, he'll be there kind of thing. So and then like he got like organize all of his dual monster cards that he has. He got tons of cards in like, this big closet that needs to be organized. And then he got to set these kind of appointments. But he thinking like what Atticus does is like so easy, but he sneaks in under cover of darkness and sees that he works 1,000 times hard than you realize. That he constantly has to be the best because he's like on the pro circuit. He's one of the top world's best duelists. As Maximilian Pex is mentioned in the previous season, the top duels being Yugi Moto, Seto Kaiba, Joey Wheeler, then it's Atticus. Well, I think it's what do you say? It's like because Jesse Anderson's on there, but then it's Atticus, and obviously Jaden gets up there pretty fast. When word eventually gets around outside of Duel Academy, but like they're in the top pros, and so to keep it in the top pros and keep his skills up, it's kind of like Michael Jordan. He practices, until his hands are bleeding, even though like I never understood like why his hands are bleeding from like all this like handshaking. Maybe his hands might be sore. At most it should be cramping, but bleeding, unless you got a paper cut from like one of the cards, it's like it shouldn't be bleeding. But you get to see that he works a lot, and like it's more than just dueling. He has to be on top of his game. It's just like with like people like doing like those fighting game tournaments like Mortal Kombat. It's like you gotta know as much as you can, but all these kind of combos, know how to deal with any kind of character that might be thrown your way, and just be on top of your game. Or if like playing Call of Duty or something, you got to be like, you see like if you watch videos of this stuff, you see people just sniping, moving, throw stuff, throw a grenade like around here, and it's like you gotta be on point. It's like there's no slacking. This is not casual stuff. You gotta be like on top of your game the second the match starts, and that's what you see from like the point of view from Chaz looking at Aster Phoenix. And so now he understands that, okay, if he's working 1,000 times hard, I gotta work 10,000 times harder. And so this really rejuvenates Chaz in a way to like, okay, I know what it takes to be a pro duelist more so than I previously thought. So I gotta make sure that I gotta be on top of my game too, no matter what it is. So right away he's like setting up all these appointments, like on the dot. He's like got all Aster's suits prepped and ready. Here's like your stuff for today. Make sure you have it on. By this point, you got an appointment. 8 a.m. Get you gotta get stuff. By the way, I cleared your schedule for this afternoon, so that way you rest your hand. So there's no more book signs for the rest of the day. So you're resting your hand, and that's done. And then he's off to set up some other stuff. And I was like, Chad Spencer's definitely come a long way himself. He's not like a snot nosed, angsty, dickhead no more. He's matured. He's still angsty, but it's more mature angstiness, and he knows what he wants in life, and he doesn't want to rely on his family name or money. Considering that, if you recall from season 1, his brothers are complete asshats, and I'm still so glad that Seto Kaiba handed their walking papers. He didn't work. They didn't work for Kaiba. It's like they trying to make business with Kaiba. Kaiba ain't having none of that. He knows, because considering how much he loves his brother, he will resent anybody. He won't even give you a time of day if you're the type of guy who treats your sibling like shit, like overall dog shit, so callously. He ain't gonna have no time for you. But now it's like everything's coming to a head where it's like Jaden and Jesse's heading back, and you see Atticus dueling against Fujiwara, who Atticus did beat. And it's like, wow, like it's just like Joey Wheeler and Merrick. And it's like they legit beat this, guy. Although, just like with Thanos in Infinity War, using the Time Stone to throw a fucking Hail Mary and rewound time just to get the freaking Mind Stone, the Darkness rewound time for some inexplicable reason, and completely did a different move and beat Atticus and absorbed him in the darkness. I thought, I call BS. Oh my god, that was so doggone stupid. And that's beyond plot contrivance. But then it's down to it's just Jesse and Jaden at this point, going up against the Darkness. And thanks to Fujiwara's ace card, Honest, who earlier in several episodes took upon himself to use in order to, because Honest wants to get his master back into the light. Thanks to the teamwork of these guys, they managed to purge the Darkness from Fujiwara's body, reminding him that he's not alone. He's never alone. But then the Darkness take his own form, and it's kind of skeletal horse face kind of thing. And he mentions that, as I was mentioning earlier, thanks to the combined stuff between what's been going on this island between Yubel, as the Light of Darkness, and I'm blanking on that doggone first guy's name from season 1, the big bad for season 1. I forgot. Kagamaru. I know stuff with a K, but I can't remember. Kagamaru. All that stuff caused like a shaking the foundations of the physical and the metaphysical kind of thing that caused him to really put a foothold into to Earth. And he wants to absorb the entire world into darkness. But thanks to Jaden, who and Yubel's power, they managed to get a crack through the darkness and reach out to his friends and everybody who can hear him, saying that Look at your cards. There's no matter how weak one of them is, there's gotta be one that you have been using and that you formed willingly or in unintentionally formed a bond with that became like a part of you, and like use that as your light to get back into the world, and they use that as like it's kind of like the Flash. If you watch any of the Flash TV shows, like he always have like Iris as his lightning rod, and it's like something to like ground him. That's what they basically have to utilize because they got their own little ace cards that they use a lot through their duels that have help them form bonds and help them and their decks grow throughout the years. Use that as a their lightning rod to get back to home, and everybody comes back, and like with Shock the Darkness, and Jada ended up using like divine Neos to beat the darkness in the duel. And of course, the darkness is like, you can't truly beat me. There's always gonna be darkness in the world, and I'll be back. And like Jaden points out, like, yeah, I know. It's like there's always gonna be duels like me who will always be here to fight you. And that reminded me of something. Like somebody said something similar, either in an anime or a movie. Uh, uh, I'm blanking on it. Like I know it's gonna come up at some point in the future, and I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering. But it's like, yeah, like, yeah, we'll always be here. Uh, and we always there's always guys like me here and ready to step up and fight you. So now, as graduation time, people getting their diplomas, but you know, Jaden's then like he got his little diploma, he's packing up, and it's like I'm starting to think like, okay, where's his doggone parents? I know in a manga they put him into like this as I mentioned in the previous review, they trying to they think he's like something wrong with him. They put him in like a electrical shock therapy kind of situation. A little kid, mind you. So it's like, okay, did you like cast your parents off completely or something? Because like you're not going back home because you're clearly were you in an orphanage at least? It's like it's like because like you're obviously wearing like Domino school uniforms in like the very first episode, run to the Dual Academy exams. So it's like you gotta have a home. But now all of a sudden it's like, okay, you're planning on just going off, because he mentions like, oh, there's other people who needs to reconnect to their dual spirits. There's always gonna be somebody need help or something like that. So he's like, that's what he gonna do. Uh, uh, but uh, uh, you got Bell and Professor Crowler's spirits tagging along. He's bringing Pharaoh the cat with him, because Cyrus is gonna look after his brother, taking on the mantle of the cyber deck kind of thing, and that was like a nice little button point where like Cyrus is, you know, Zane's finally looking at Cyrus as like, and Cyrus not afraid of using power bond like he used to, and like the way Cyrus behaves here is a lot better and what should have been shown in last season, because it seems like a back pedal of the character in season 3. But Cyrus is a lot more mature. He's back wearing the blue obelisk uniforms because he's because like I think Jaden was the only one wearing Cypher red, because he's still like a Cypher red uniform, and he never like cared to, rising up in other classes where he could easily do so. He even still stay in the Slifer dorm, which he's more than likely the only one there aside from people coming by to hang out. But Zane looks at his younger brother as someone who finally surpasses him in terms of skill, and he wants to, you know, rebuild his own deck to uh from scratch, and like, you know, I guess evolve it, or at least like, you know, let it grow, because he already reached a peak with his cyber deck. So he hands it to, like, you know, Cyrus, who uses it to beat this other rival of this cyber art thing, who uses like a Jinzo deck. Uh, but yeah, Jaden is off, but Win Karibo calls him to the uh, room where they keep like a copy of Yugimoto's deck on display, and Jaden sees from the shadows uh, a slightly older Yugimoto step from the shadows. Of course, his eyes is, you know, cast in shadow, but it's clearly him. And like all I can hear is from that little subtle, not from the sub, but I remember from like the dub that, you know, in episode 1, it still chokes my heart just to see, like, you know, like the passing of the torch, handing Winkadribo off to Jaden, and it's like, I think this belongs to you. Dun 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 dun. And like I can just hear that in my mind every time Yugi makes an appearance, and like, and Yugi just mentions how proud he is, you know, despite like the harshness he's gone through. Like he's always been like it always seems to me like, you know, the way that dialogue is reading is like Yugi is always, not maybe not always, but he kind of kept an eye on things when it comes to him, and he kind of like expected to see him again since the last time we saw him, as he gave him the Win Karibo. And so he mentions to Jaden, like, and despite everything you went through, you seem like you missed something. Point Win Karibo at the display, and you'll meet a like an ultimate duelist. And like, you know, Jaden was confused, like, I thought you were the ultimate duelist. But he does that. He's transported back in time in New Domino, not New Domino, like Domino City, and he bumps into Yugi. And in the way it seems, because like this is like Yugi who still got the Egyptian God card, so this gotta be set after the events of Waking the Dragons, because you still got the puzzle, and you know, obviously still the Yami Yugi with him. So Yugi points out to him, it's like, you know, you won't believe this, but I think I had like a dream. My Win, because Jaden showed him Win Karibo, saying like, you gave this to me, and like, I gave this to you, because he pulls out his Karibo, and it's like, you know, I had a dream last night. My Karibo told me that I will be meeting like a good duelist soon, and like, are you that good duelist? So they go to the where that clock area is that you saw in like Duelist Kingdom, like where near that like a square or something like that, and like they have their duel, and this is something like, God, I really wish they had it in like in the dub version, just to hear like these two voice actors, Dan Green and like the, you know, Jaden Yugi voice actor. We kind of got that in like Bonds Beyond Time, which eventually I will do a movie review on that, but I'm gonna wait until after I'm done with the entire series of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, just to make sure, because they have all three of the main protagonists from those from the first three generations of Yu-Gi-Oh! Together in one movie, and that always warmed my heart. So I want to make sure that I cover all three, at least like up to the point of 5Ds before I go to that movie. And then after that, like you know, the other Yu-Gi-Oh movie, I forgot, like something like uh something darkness. I forgot. Wait, a quick look here because it's gonna bug me. The Dark Side Dimension. I knew it was like dark something. I'm gonna cover that as well at some point. But so they shuffle each other's decks, and Yubel, oh well, with Yubel's eyes, Jaden senses like the raw power coming from Yugi's deck. You see like red, yellow, and blue of the essence of the Egyptian god cards in there, and Yugi senses that there's some kind of power coming from you, and I guess there's no malice, but it's like I guess like people like us can just like kind of smell off each other. So their duel starts, and like you're just glued to the duel. It's probably the most glued to a duel than any other kind of thing you've seen before. Whereas at least one of the easily the top 5 best duels in Yu-Gi-Oh history, definitely in the top 5. And like you see them just countering each other. These like at their peak of skill. And they of course they summon the ace monsters, Dark Magician and Neos, and like they destroy each other and then reviving each other, and it's like all these tit for tats. But yes, like obviously I ain't gonna fully spoil this part. You got to see this for yourself how like epic it is. Because if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, this is something that you always want to like rewatch. But ultimately, uh, Yugi managed to summon Slifer the Sky Dragon, while Jaden still has his Neos, and of course Jaden doesn't have any other set magic or trap cards on the field, so he just orders Neos to charge in on like Slifer. So it's kind of like it's kind of obvious. I mean, even beyond that, because it's kind of like it's left undecided. They kind of cut it short, but let's be honest, Yugi beat Jaden easily. Especially this is peak Yugi with the Egyptian god cards. Yeah, it's not feasible for Jaden to take him down. But a freeze frame before the collision is made, and Jaden's in the desert for some reason. Not a desert, but it's kind of like a rocky landscape, and kind of like in a I want to say Nevada desert, but it's kind of like like Arizona kind of rocky mountain kind of area, something like that. And like he's all packed up, and he's got like Professor Banner and Yubel with him, and Pharaoh the Cat, and he just thanks to Yugi, he finally got that spark back, his love for dueling, and he's like thanks everyone, and he does his final in the sub is gotcha, but he in the dub it's like get your game on, and he does the final get your game on with the pointing his 2 fingers in the air, and nice little button up to the overall series. But yeah, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. It was a great passing of the torch from one generation to the next. A great seasons, a lot to get from. It's a shame that they couldn't wrap up the final season in like the dub, but you know how it ends if you watch the sub. But yeah, great villains, great characters. You get so invested with a lot of these characters. I kind of wish they did better with a female protagonist, but you know, is what it is. But it's still, I love Alexis regardless. And a nice way to end everything. Just the same way it was a nice way to end the first generation of Yu-Gi-Oh! With Yami Yugi dueling against Little Yugi to show their growth and maturity, and just a nice little, thumbs up. It's just similar to like Yugi's thumbs up into the afterlife, and where Jaden just points to the sky. Thank you, everybody. But yeah, man, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is a phenomenal anime, appropriate to be like in like the upper echelon of anime in my opinion. But I kind of mold Yu-Gi-Oh! As a franchise all together in one because it's like it's tied. It's like it's like I think slightly number one in terms of my favorite anime of all time, with Pokemon being number two. But it's like so close together because like I love Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it hit me right in that sweet spot in my childhood growing up. Because like obviously Pokemon came first, before Yu-Gi-Oh! Did like a year or two later. But man, it was like a groundswell. It was an amazing franchise. To this day, it's still an amazing franchise. Eventually, I'll check out Range, but I want to go through the stuff in order. So it's gonna be a while, but eventually I'll start covering Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Then eventually, it's gonna be tough. It's not like Zexo and Arc 5 is terrible, but there's certain decisions that was made. It seems like kind of like it make it seem like they're a parody of themselves after a certain point. Goofy hair and the female protagonist by and large gets worse, but I'll bring it in once we get to it. But yeah, but 5Ds is next pretty soon. But I'm going to cover JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the Josuke arc. So look forward to that in the coming weeks. And stay tuned. In a couple of minutes, I'll start posting my Father's Day reviews, movie reviews. I got two videos coming up pretty soon. So look forward to those. And then later on tonight, I'll get back to Final Fantasy VII remake on my PS5. So look forward to those. And I'll see you guys soon. And let me know in the comments below what you thought of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX as a whole, and Season 4 more specifically. And what was your favorite duels out of the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series? Because Yugi and Jaden's duel, I was in the top favorite. But like Satora's and Jaden in Season 2, my favorite. I love the graduation duel between Zane and Jaden. That is a highlight. But and the tag team duel between like the Paradox brothers and Cyrus and Jaden, though that is a good favorite too. But what are your favorites? And what are your least favorites? Because I think my least favorite is Hasselberry and Cyrus tag team against those two, dudes on top of the building in Domino City, like the T-Bone and the other dude. Like, I don't like those characters at all. It seems like I don't know. It seems, I won't say clunky, but it's like it didn't grab me. Chumley's duels, like I didn't really care for it all that much. He honestly was like a non-entity kind of character, honestly. Like you cannot make me care for Chumley that much. But yeah, those are probably like my few off the top of my head, my few non-favorite duels out of the entire series. Oh, and then like one against like the Reaper and like in season 1, and that wannabe Tarzan guy, that was my least favorite. Oh, my other favorite duel out of the entire GX series is the copycat duel is up against Jaden, who stole Yugi's deck. That is like probably second or third favorite, if I can rank it, of Duel's entire GX series. But yeah, I love that one. That was really, really good. But yeah, I will see you guys soon. Take care. Be safe. And